Hello, everyone, and welcome to the JavaScript Exchange, our first event of 2021. Well, hopefully our first of what will be many in 2021. As always, we'll do a quick intro, myself and Jess here, and then we'll get straight into the talks. So the JavaScript Exchange was founded in early 2020. I think we had our first meetup about a week before we went into national lockdown. So since that point, we've moved to purely digital events as we are right now, successfully hosting 8 over the course last year. It's our 9th event now, and yeah, growing every day up to over 750, well, 772, as you can see their members at the moment. So in order to stay in touch with us and keep up to date with what's going on with future talks and any events, and well, hopefully we'll be able to see each other face to face in the not too distant future, we use Twitter and LinkedIn mainly. So we've got our Twitter handle there at JavaScript_EX and on LinkedIn at the JavaScript Exchange. So this evening, as you know, as you're operating over Zoom, as always, we have a Q&A function. So throughout the talks, if you do have any questions that pop up, feel free to ask them in the Q&A function, which you should have at the bottom of your Zoom window or at the bottom of your screen. Click on that, ask any questions you'd like. The panelists will be monitoring throughout the talks, and Jess will be bringing up any questions at the end of each talk to discuss as well. Okay, over to you, Jess.
Thanks, Tom. So on the agenda for this evening, we have speakers Anisha from IBM, who's a senior front-end developer, and she's going to be talking us through from zero to production in 4 sprints, and then followed by Sam, who's a technical lead over at AND Digital and Titan Travel, the Next.js digital company, and a really interesting project that they've got going on with them. And a little word about our sponsors. So Linux Recruit, big thank you to these guys, because without their support, we wouldn't be able to put on these events for you guys. So thank you. Hopefully, as Tom said, maybe in the not too distant future, we'll be able to do this face to face. So myself and Tom, we work in the development team over at Linux Recruit. We've recently been joined by Rhiannon, so a warm welcome to her as well. So if you are looking for a new position or you're looking to grow your team, feel free to get in touch with either of us, and our contact details are there. And finally, if you fancy ever giving this a go, we are always on the lookout for new speakers. So please get in touch and don't be shy. You can reach us at info@linuxrecruit.co.uk. So I'm going to move on to our first speaker of the evening. So Anisha, if you want to turn on your screen and maybe share it, that would be great. Hi, how you doing?
Hey.
Good. So I will mute myself now, and yeah, you take it away.
Cool. Thanks for the introduction. So yeah, as Jessica mentioned, my name's Anisha, and I've been a consultant at IBM for about the last 3.5 years. And what I want to share today is a journey that I went through last year due to COVID-19. And it is about how we went from zero to production in 60 days. So it might sound like the title of a horror movie, but this was the ask. What happened was, obviously due to COVID-19, students from the University of Arts London were left without their in-person showcase. Now, this showcase is where these art students display their work for the world to see, and a lot of them get recruited off this. And if you've heard of Grayson Perry, that's where he was discovered. And now he's the Chancellor of the UAL. So what they wanted was a platform for students to upload their work in various formats. So to be able to upload it in sound, PDFs, images, 3D, and for this work to then be moderated. So tutors could go in and see the work and moderate it, award prizes, and then for it to be displayed to the whole world in a showcase that was meant to go live 2 weeks from the day we started coding. And if that wasn't enough, this was all meant to be mobile friendly, accessible. And so what this did was trigger what I like to call production phobia for me. And this was the fear of messing up the production environment. And rightfully so, because we only had 4 sprints and about 3 developers to do this. But we managed to do it. And I'll show you the site before I take you through the stack that we used to be able to achieve it. So if you head over to graduateshowcase.arts.ac.uk, you'll be taken to this lovely homepage. You can go in, you can see different works. So we managed to collate collections. So different schools and different colleges could collate a collection. So for example, the London School of Fashion collated this one. There was a little message from Grace and Perry, and then you could go in and see all the students' work. So we had a nice page, and this displayed all the projects, and every time you land on this page, this was all randomized. So if I search for something like COVID, it searches through all the projects and returns all the COVID related projects, highlights the where in the project it was COVID. They're all tagged as well. So say this project didn't have COVID in the title, it might have been tagged with COVID or in their description. So it searched all the fields to show anything related. So it was a really powerful search. And then this was all provided by Strappy, which I'll get onto in a few minutes. So this is one of the projects examples. If we go in here, you can see the different work of art. You can go through their different project pages. Looks like they've got the same picture. First render is slightly slower because we were using CloudFront to provide our images. So AWS's service CloudFront, which caches the images after the first render. But once you start going through them and after they'd rendered once, if you reload this page, those images would render a lot faster. And as I said, it was all mobile friendly. So if we go in here and you can see that it's all mobile friendly, and if I rotate the device, it will come up with a pop-up saying, can you rotate it back to portrait so that you have a better viewing experience, because we didn't get around to really getting everything working in this landscape mode. So if I close that again. And what was really cool was the way we managed to give each college its own page. So if you go up to the top nav bar, where you can see that each college has its own course, and each college has its own subject area, and each subject area has its own course. So to get all these college pages working was going to be a nightmare if we had to do it through the natural React routing. But what we used was this mechanism from Strappy that was really useful, called the slug mechanism, which allowed these different colleges to build out their own specific pages. And that brings me into Strappy. So Strappy is the CMS that we used. And what it is a really lightweight open source CMS, where this is the interface you're given. And in this interface, you can say whether or not you want a collection. So you can have different collections, and within those collections, you can have different item types. So you could see you've got an ID, you've got where it's created. You've got different single types. So single types are options. So if you wanted to have something that was reusable in your different collection types, you could define a single type. And what was really cool about Strappy was, back to my slides. What was really cool about Strappy was the GraphQL interface that it exposed. So if you've heard of GraphQL, it's a query language for APIs, and it provides a really complete and understandable description of the data in your API. So what it really does is give you the power to ask for exactly what you want and nothing more. And this makes it really easy to evolve your APIs over time. And for us, where our data that was being pulled through from the UAL systems where the students would upload their work was constantly changing, having a GraphQL endpoint was really nice because we could define our schemas. And I'll show you how easy it was to query that data from a GraphQL endpoint. So if I come in here and I say I want to query a category, it'll auto-populate that for me. And then I can go in and say I want the query for ID, let's say 1, and the field that I want back from that is the name. And so it tells me that name will be a string. And so if we do that, we will see it get back the category French. And if we go into Strappy, you can see in the categories for category section, we have number 1 being French. And so what this allowed us to do is really have a nice React front end with an Apollo client querying the Strappy exposed GraphQL endpoint. So we had really nice schemas for the different data, and if anything changed, say when integrating with the UAL system where the student was uploading their work and the field changed from first name to say last name, or they removed the first from the name, we would be able to pick that up straight away from our schema. And what was really cool about Strapi was a content type. So if you go into Content Builder, you can build out content which has this really nice UID field, where you can have a slug or a SEO URL. And this slug-based system is let us really dynamic pages without having to go in and define them all ourselves. So we had slugs for each of the different subject areas, and then obviously for the courses. So if you look at this URL, that shows you the slug-based system that we used with Strapi. Another ask that they had, if I can go into that, was having each of these college pages have this area on their page where they could dynamically input the HTML that they wanted. So obviously we didn't want to have to go in and build like 150 college pages. So what we did was we used the power of Storybook. So Storybook allows you to visualize your components. And if we go into this one, you might be able to guess which company Storybook this is for. It's probably something none of us have used this year, or if you did, you were very lucky. And it's for Airbnb, and you can see the different components exposed. And there's another example for this one. Again, it's a company we won't have used this year, so it's for Skyscanner. And what you can see is a really nice knobs, and you can add different knobs, but you can also interact with your components as you would on your normal site. It gives you different versions of things you can plug in, so you can run your accessibility tests on Storybook. So it's really good for regression testing. You can have your different actions, and you can interact with all your components. And what we did was we built a Storybook for all our React components. And what we had was a knob here for, not knob, sorry, an option here for a HTML that came out of the React component. And we had a CSS style sheet within our application that defined all the classes. So when we were building out components, we defined class names so that the HTML that they exposed could be put into a little HTML tag in the React component. And that way, the colleges and course pages should just go in and be able to create the HTML content for whatever they wanted. So they could have used our buttons, they could have used videos or anything they really wanted. And that's how they could create this custom part of their page. So that really gave us the power to give them the capacity to build out what they wanted without it really affecting our development in our application. That was so that was kind of whirlwind on how we built this, and you know, it really couldn't have been done without Strapi. And that kind of brings me on to the open source and the value of having open source software that lets people like the UAL build out things really fast and you know, without having to spend hundreds and thousands of pounds on managed systems. So what I really wanted to touch on was the lessons that I learned. So this was indeed my first project as technical lead, and there's a few things that I sort of gathered which I wanted to note down and sort of share. It maybe the things you already know, or maybe they're just things that I thought might be useful. So testing was the main one. So having tests helps you really pick up anything that might be going on and helps you with your debugging, but making sure that you've got the right test is really important. So obviously most clients would come in and say we'd love 100% test coverage, but given the time frame we had, this was not really an option. So making sure that we had the right tests, so integration tests, so with Strapi, and having really good UI tests to go through the user flow, which was what we wanted to really test in the first place, right? That if we're making changes that were constantly happening, will this affect what's already existing? And this is really important for us because we had a launch to the students, obviously. So the first launch for them to be able to go in and view their work, and then the second launch where it went public. And in between all that, there was also a private launch. So obviously making sure that nothing we didn't expect to change between that was important. Second one is more of a personal one. So it's trusting your team. And I find that in this situation where we're all working from home and you may not have even met some members of your team, putting the trust in them and giving them ownership of the environment is just as important as any of the other technical lessons learned. So third one is agile, agile, agile. And now while this might not seem intuitive, being a project with a fixed deadline, making sure that your project's agile will actually really benefit. So in our case, we had different features being built out, and what we did was build the minimum viable iteration of the phase of what the client wanted. So for example, if we go into the viewer work page, so this project's listing page, what this was the first iteration, just getting all the projects to show up and being able to search for them with 2 words. What we ideally wanted to get to was having a filter, having different ways of searching, but obviously like time constraints didn't allow it. But having done things agile, we ended up with a working site where we actually had time to bug fix as well, and not be building out features right to the very end that probably didn't even work. The fourth one is PDFs are a nightmare. So this was a personal bane of my 4 weeks, and it was just getting those PDFs to work. So if anybody has any suggestions on how to get PDFs to work with React better, I'm all ears. The fifth one was documenting data models and API responses. If you're not using GraphQL, which sort of takes out this and abstracts it for you, having this really well documented so your whole team is aware of what's going on and what to expect, is really useful when things are really changing quite fast. And I think having that really sped up our delivery. DevOps from day one. So while this might be pushed back against, I think having DevOps happening at the same time as development is really key, so that you're not sitting there with code that's not being displayed anywhere. And that brings me on to staging environment is also a must. And while you might think that this is probably an obvious one, you'd be surprised at how many clients don't want to pay for staging environments. So if ever this happens, I'd say push back as much as you can. Make sure that you have a staging environment, and are not debugging in production. And the final one is that designers and developers are working hand in hand, and make sure that you're having open conversations with your designers along the whole journey, so that you don't end up developing things that could have been designed slightly easier, but also they know the value of their own designs, and making sure that you appreciate that some things obviously might seem like not as important probably are, and vice versa. So yeah, that's about 6 minutes. No, not 6 minutes, 15 minutes on how we did something in 60 days. So thank you.
Thank you ever so much for that, Anisha. That was brilliant and really insightful. I guess, what people need to know is like how it's worked for you, and I imagine there were maybe some baptisms of fire maybe through that as well. So I'm going to pass over to Sam. So Sam, if you are there.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here. I haven't gone anywhere. 1 second, starting everything up. Hello, everybody.
Perfect. I'm going to turn myself off and you share your screen and off you go.
Okay, we're going. Cool. Spoiler alert. Cool. Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to speak to you about the new client that we are starting started over the past month, working for Titan Travel, and how we plan to help them emerge into being a digital company, and how we're going to do that with full stack JavaScript. So using Next.js, which I'm sure all you guys have heard about a lot over the past year and a bit. So just a little bit into who I am. Hello, I'm Sam, tech lead and D&B dancer. Believe it or not, that is my actual job title. And Digital is a really great company, which is quite developer first, and it really encourages you to be more than just a developer. You are sharing a bit more about who you are, to drive conversation, and also just to enforce the fact that you're not just a developer. You are a human as well. Hang on a minute, let me move this out of the way so you can see better. Yeah, so I started my career at IBM, same as Anisha, in a slightly different team. So I worked for the what was the Bluemix garage, or turned into their cloud garage. Worked for some big clients, stressful environments, but learned a lot before moving to AND Digital just about a year ago now. And Digital also worked for some big clients, Premier Inn, Whitbread, but also and do some great work for charities. So when we're on the bench, we do some not-for-profit work for charities like Cancer Care Map. So really enjoyed working with them a bit this year. But now finally been given new client, which is Titan Travel. So the difference between Titan Travel and these other clients is this is the first time which I've been able to build a site completely greenfield. In all the ones you see there, there's always been legacy things that we've had to deal with, mainly CMSs. So done a lot of work and pain points with AEM and Sitecore. So this is the first time where we get to build it again from scratch. So really excited to show you the stack that we've come up with. And also kind of feedback. So looking for kind of feedback and ideas, and if you think that I could do things better, let me know. This is a proposed solution. We haven't built it yet, but this is, I think it's important to share what we're going to build, because this is kind of the future of the internet. So I want to hear everyone's input. So a little bit about who Titan Travel are. So Titan Travel are the UK's leading escorted tour specialist. They're an award-winning company who take some of the older generation on amazing trips around the world, but real VIP travel. So they really look after you during your trip and make it really special for you. So special, in fact, that 98% of their customers would book again, and they're a really great company in that regard. However, they're quite young in terms of their digital presence, and they're quite young in their journey to being a digital company. Right now is a really important time for them because they're just becoming more technically independent from their parent company, and really defining who they are technologically, so they can really build greenfield and do what they want. And they're really using this COVID time as a positive. They know that not many people are touching the website at the moment, so it's a real time, a good time for them to rebuild something ready for what they believe is going to be this huge holiday boom, which when people are all out of lockdown, which I'm sure is going to happen. And yeah, they're ready to embrace the digital revolution. So this is all about they fit well with Anne's ethos, which is that everybody needs to kind of embrace this digital revolution. Every company nowadays is a digital company, so we help these companies to become more digital. So a great company, and for me, they're an awesome client. So the website today, it's built on Sitecore v6, which is going on, or is already out of long-term support, although they've managed to extend it just for our particular version for now. They have this idea that there's two CMSs. So there's a CMS for the website content, which lives on Sitecore, but also there's this product CMS, which is where all their tours and all their holidays live. And that serves some of their glossy brochures, which is also one of their main kind of entry points for customers into Titan Travel. At the moment, the website's kind of functional, but the experience in the back end really isn't very good. There's a lot of manual work going on to copy these tours over from the product CMS into Sitecore, and Anna is having a bit of trouble keeping all the pages linked together and keeping all this content linked. The customers themselves, they find the website okay. They can book you during the website, but with an award-winning customer call center, most of them are finding it much easier just to call up and speak to one of the really knowledgeable advisors. So the challenge for us is really how can we turn their website into their main portal and their main avenue for customers booking holidays. So yeah, a few problems to be solved. As I've already mentioned, there's a lot of manual work and interventions. Also, I forgot to say that the whole website at the moment is developed and run by their parent company. So they have 40 hours of development time per month to be able to do some updates to their site, core site, which really isn't a lot. So as part of this project, we'll be building their own digital capabilities and let me just close this. This is annoying me. There we go. Building their digital capabilities and getting some devs in-house. There's a lot of hidden costs on their current website. A lot of this is actually to do with SEO and page ranking. So currently the page load speed is around 20 seconds for some pages. So they're really ranking quite low on Google. So they're spending a lot on paid ads. So can we remove some of that cost with what we're doing? And really, yeah, accelerate the SEO benefits to get as many customers into the website as possible. And once the customers are in the website, can we use their profile and their preferences a bit better to serve the right content and the right product at the right price at the right time? And really, we want to build Titan a platform that for the future, that's scalable, integrated, and that they can run with when AND Digital have finished our engagement. So yes, in terms of the website tomorrow, some of the ideas of what we want to do from a user experience perspective. So we've been speaking to lots of users over the last month or so. Andre, our user experience lead, has spoken to 31 users so far in the past month. And we will be continuing to do that throughout the project and continuing to iterate on our designs and really improving them based off user feedback. It's all going to be mobile first. Now, the reason it's mobile first is not because we have a lot of people that use mobile. It's really so we can really simplify the page content to really ensure that we're getting the stuff on the page that is needed. Because obviously it's very much easier to add in components when we want to make a desktop rather than try and take away components when we're trying to make a mobile design out of a desktop. So mobile first is very important. We want to try and tap into the active community. So we have a lot of people that, a lot of customers that really want to shout about the holidays that they've been on and review them. So can we really tap into that a bit better? We can hopefully make the site really simple and easy to use for this non-tech savvy user base so that we can reduce some call center drop off as well, and really surface Titan's expertise that they have in-house through the website. It's really important during this, we also take the business on the journey. As we said, the business isn't in that digital mindset yet. So can we really bring them on board? And we have a lot of playbacks to the wider business in order to get them being part of our journey as well. So let's talk about the interesting bit, the technology. So here's a little overview of the tech stack that we're going with. So yeah, we've got Cloudflare on the front to provide our WAF, our web application security layer, as well as a few other little tricks, which I will mention a bit later, which are really useful. We're building the front end with a combination of static site generation and server-side rendering using Next.js and TypeScript. We're using storyblok, which is an interesting one probably for you guys, as our headless CMS. We'll talk about that in more detail as well. We're going to remove this manual process of uploading tours from their product CMS by creating a little Node.js microservice that does that and interacts with Storyblok's management API. And really the idea of this is we've designed this from a user perspective, from a back-end user's perspective. So really make it easier and simpler, make Anna and Roger's life a lot easier to manage all this content and to serve the website. Some other things to mention. So we're going full stack JavaScript in order to be able to get our in-house developer capability and make it really easy to manage moving forwards. Storyblok has this amazing preview mode, which I can show you a bit later, which allows you makes it really easy for content editors to add their components, their blocks to the page and see instant results of what it's going to look like. We can also do amazing things linking the content dynamically based on search tags, because it's going through this build step, this static generation step, where we can put JavaScript in there and link pages that have search tags and link blogs to product pages and make Anna's life easier there. We'll be doing agile development and obviously CI/CD pipelines from the start to make the development experience really good throughout as well. So diving in a bit deeper into why we've chosen the different bits we have. I'm speaking on the JavaScript Exchange. A lot of you would have heard and seen a lot about Next.js recently. So it's no surprise that we've gone with that for our front end. Really, one of the main reasons for us is the fact that we can do static site generation for all these amazing tour pages and for the blogs, which really obviously is very good for SEO, to really make love to this Google SEO bot. But also it allows us to do server-side rendering for the more complex journeys. So for the booking flow and for the login, my profile, the My Titan, which is kind of their profile. So really making the site as fast as possible and really hoping to get up there in the Google page rankings. Some other things that Next really does well, they do the route prefetching, really solves a problem from React, and means that you can do like instant navigation without it doing a lot of requests and re-rendering of the page. So that's really fast. And the built-in routing really helps us, and also supporting dynamic routes really helps us to create these static content pages. And all of this obviously is optimized for SEO, which is one of our main targets to really improve. Now, this is the interesting one for some of you. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. We're using storyblok for our headless CMS. Now, I can't claim all credit for this. Storyblok was a recommendation that came from our consultancy team based on the fact that a sister company of Titan have used it about 6 months ago for a very similar use case. So in our discovery phase, we hit storyblok with everything we've got to see if we could disprove that it didn't work. But at every turn, it really stood up to the test. And I think the real standout is the visual editor that it provides. So if any of you have tried to build a headless CMS and static site solution before, you realize that trying to build a preview mode is really difficult and can take some really complex pipeline work and DevOps work if you're using something like Contentful and Gatsby, for example. So storyblok has an amazing visual editor, and actually it gives you a React component that enables you to create a bridge between the component itself and the headless CMS. I can demo that a bit later if we have time. It's component based, which is brilliant as well, obviously matching nicely with how React works, and it really allows us to make the code really look nice and match components across. And yeah, it has all the basics. It's well documented with its management APIs. They're very active on Discord and GitHub and will answer questions really quickly. And obviously having a GraphQL API is pretty standard nowadays for headless CMSs, but it's very important for us as we want to be using that moving forwards. Another interesting thing that we want to do this project is kind of change how we're doing testing. So one thing that we're going to be doing is no component unit tests. I find component unit test probably takes up about 70% of your development time and is quite complicated, especially for less senior, less experienced developers. So what we're going to do is the only test that happens in a component are snapshots, and then more to document the different states of the component than anything else. We really what we'll be doing mostly is using Cypress and Cucumber for behavior-driven development, or BDD, user interaction tests. So the idea being that we can really help the business analyst, the product analyst, to create stories which are written in BDD format, behavior-driven development format, and then we will translate those into Cypress tests with the Cucumber layer on top of it to make them really human readable. This means that we're testing actual user interactions and how the actual site works, rather than just testing isolated components, where a lot of the time you're testing that a mock equals a mock. We're still going to be doing TDD on pure functions and utils, which is the perfect use case for TDD. It really helps you obviously build these complex functions out and refactor them to really get the most out of them. We can still get that magic tick, which the business loves so much, of 100% code coverage. Istanbul has a really useful plugin that enables us to combine Cypress test coverage with Jest test coverage, so that we can get that done. I think it's important to do 100% test coverage because that makes developers not test every line, but it makes them really keeps them honest. So I'm happy if a developer puts Istanbul ignore next line in front of a particular test line, if they have a reason for it. So maybe they'll say, this is going to take too long, I'm going to break it out into this tech deck ticket, or etc. I think that that's good to do, good practice. I'm interested to try whether we can use both stubbed and integration tests with Cypress. So you can use Cypress tags for saying whether it stubbed, just a stub test, or whether it's an integration test. Most of the tests will be written in stubbed mode, but we want, during the UAT phase of the pipeline, when it moves to UAT, we want to run these integration tests as well by removing the stubs. So I'm interested to kind of figure out how we can do that, because we're not going to have any QAs on this project. Budget's quite tight, resources are quite tight. So really, can we build this in a most reliable way without needing someone to be checking and accepting the stories from a QA perspective? But yeah, this is not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a big project. So how do we break it up into small iterable steps? So this is what we're using. One of the reasons for using Cloudflare. So Cloudflare allows you to do path splitting. So with its page rewrite rules, you can say that you can send traffic to different websites. So I could send traffic to the new website for /blogs, for example, if we release this first, without touching the old website at all. So this really enables us to just pick off bits of the old website piece by piece and release to production earlier, and really get the benefit of these pages earlier. Obviously, doing the shorter release cycles and shorter feedback loop gives us this ability to release, user test, pivot, and change if we want. Also, using the page rewrite rules, it's very easy to do this sort of blue-green deploy, red-green deploy, just switching the page instantly to the new website once that page is ready, to really split this big project into manageable chunks and concentrate on one thing at a time. So I'm really excited about this project. I'm really excited to use this new tech stack. If you were too, then there's some opportunities open to you. I'm going to just pause on this slide and feel free to scan that QR code if this might be interesting. But don't hang around, because the closing date is Friday. So we're really looking for developers now, and we've got some really positive candidates already. But if you're interested in joining us, then come on board. We'd love to work with you. You'll be working with me and my team, and I think it's going to be a really fun project. So yeah, thank you very much. I was going to pause here for questions. I understand that Anisha hasn't had time for her questions either. So Jessica, let me know how you want to do this bit.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. That was brilliant. So we did have a question come through from Abhishek asking, Sam, how are you maintaining a multiple thread environment through Node.js and CPU intensive tasks? How you guys are handling? So yeah, that's a question from Abhishek, if you look in the chat.
So multiple thread environment. Hang on a minute, I'm going to look at this. How are we maintaining a multiple thread environment through Node.js and CPU intensive tasks? How are you guys handling it? So the Node.js bit is the bit that's going to be in between the product CMS and storyblok. So the product CMS is not constantly up all the time. It has a bit of resiliency issues. It's built on FileMaker. So what we're doing is the ability to publish a tour on FileMaker that goes through the Node.js app into the storyblok UAT space. So there's 3 storyblok spaces. One which is our preview space for content editors. The second one being our UAT space, and the third one being our production kind of space. So the content is going to be served from the product CMS through the Node.js app, which interacts with the content management API on storyblok to put the content into there. Is this answering the question? I'm not sure. This is all going to be hosted on Azure Cloud, and I'm not the biggest DevOps expert in the world. I'm looking forward to our senior DevOps guy coming to help me out on that.
Yeah, that's great. We've also got a question from Lucy. It's just to both of you, actually, to you as well, Anisha. How did you get your first job in website development? So how did you sort of make that transition? Oh.
Who wants to go first?
Yeah. Oh, you go first.
Oh, well, I think probably ours might be similar, but I started at IBM and I was a tech consultant when I started. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left university, and I just sort of did a lot of self-learning. And because I was at a company where they did a lot of web development, once I picked up the skills and done a few personal projects, to put a project where I could do that as part of my day job.
Oh, perfect. How about you, Sam? How did you get into it? Similar?
How do I got into IBM through the graduate scheme after university. I didn't do never written a line of code before I got to IBM. I was a physics graduate. I got to IBM and I decided, what do I want to do? Do I want to sell the stuff or do I want to write it? Well, I want to be able to write it. Thank you. So yeah, some amazing people in IBM that took me under their wing and taught me PHP to start with, then JavaScript. And it was really not until I got into the IBM Cloud Garage where we did 100% pair programming, which I really learned quickly. So that's the best way to learn any technology for me, is to do some pair programming with some people that understand what they're doing. You learn so quick.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So we've also got another question for you, Anisha, as well, from Stefano, who's asked, you mentioned that you use React and Apollo, which is a great combination. Have you guys used some other state management library in between, or everything was solved with out of the box of features from React and Apollo? So I'm not sure that naturally made sense for me, but
yeah, well, I guess because it was really just like a content displaying site, we managed to get away with just using context API. So between pages, we were using context API and really relying